The new president and CEO of the New Bedford Whaling Museum joins us this morning on Townsquare Sunday. Amanda McMullen was hired in March of this year and took over on May 7th. She began her new job and has spent an exciting summer in New Bedford. So welcome, Amanda McMullen.
Thank you, Jim. I'm glad to be here.
So what's it like to be the overseer of the largest collection of writings, historical items, displays, and just stuff about commercial whaling? What's that like?
Oh, I think of it as both a huge gift. It's the best job I've ever had, and I've loved every job I've ever had, so that's saying a lot. Mm-hmm. But, Jim, it's also such a huge responsibility. I take our role as the keepers of stuff and important things to the community very seriously.
Yeah, and there is, when I go in there and when I visit there or when I go there to cover something in the past, I'm amazed by the things I see, but I know about or know of things that have never been seen. Mm-hmm. That they are so precious, so valuable.
Right.
We've never seen them, at least for long periods of time,
right,
on public display.
Right.
One of those things was the Panorama.
Yeah.
That remarkably was restored,
right,
and put out for display this summer, which I can't even begin to ask you what I'll ask you, but what does restoration for that thing cost?
Oh, the restoration was the total project was in the millions, well over $1 million. It was $800,000 just for the exhibit itself at Kilbourne Mill. So the conservation was years in the making. It was, I call it a labor of love for so many of the colleagues that I work with. Michael Dyer, who's one of our curators who you've met with, has been working on the scholarship and research for the Panorama for decades, 2 decades, over 20 years. Christina Kinnett, our chief curator, who's just had such a vision for it, and she's worked on it for 5-6 years. Jordan Burson, who did the conservation with a team of conservators, that was 3 years in the making. So it is an extensive project, an expensive project, but was truly such a remarkable thing for me this summer, selfishly, to come in and introduce myself to the city on the winds of the Panorama. It's been pretty extraordinary.
I have to tell you, the exhibit is extraordinary.
Thank you.
The event that's going on tonight, Sunday night, is extraordinary with the New Bedford Symphony.
That's right.
And so it's just a wonderful end to the run of the Panorama.
That's
and
right.
Sadly, it may never be seen again, at least in that form.
Well, I call it Chapter 1. That's what I'm saying to people. And don't be surprised to see the Panorama chapters 2 through 20 that will be unrolling, literally and figuratively unrolling. It's had such an extraordinary run. We've had close to 25,000 people who have come to the city from near and far. The press and promotion on it has been extraordinary. It's lifted the whole city and really connected us. It's been great to sort of be out of the downtown area and be in the South End. The reach that it's had for us from an educational standpoint. So the traction and momentum is there for Panorama 2.0 for sure. You'll see more of it.
Well, that's great. Great news. Your previous position has been with Meeting Street School in Providence, which has now included the former Schwartz Center in Dartmouth under its umbrella. That was probably a lot different than this.
It was, actually, but it was such great training, I have to say, looking back at it. I landed at Meeting Street. Oh, boy, I was there, Jim, for 15 years. I had moved back home with my husband and our dog. This was before kids. We had been down in D.C. at the Smithsonian. And so my background had been in museums. I had also been at the Gardner Museum. I was an art history major, and it's just always been a passion of mine. But I landed at Meeting Street because growing up in Rhode Island, I knew what an incredibly important role it played in the community from an educational standpoint. And over the 15 years, I sort of kept getting new opportunities and moved into the role ultimately that I held for the last 4 years as Chief Operating Officer. And I was sharing with you how exciting it was to be a part of that partnership with the Schwartz Center. Really, you know when you're making an impact by keeping services going for so many kids in the community.
You're part of a large cultural community here in New Bedford, large and growing, I should say.
Right.
And clearly, there's been a lot of talk about a cultural plan for the city of New Bedford.
Right.
Have you contributed to that in some way?
Well, contributed might be a big word. I feel like I'm just getting in on the sort of work with the Regeneration Group and a couple of others that, with my chair, Tony Sapienza, who's the head of the Economic Development Council, and the work that he and Mayor Mitchell and many others are sort of putting forward in terms of New Bedford is a place to be. The arts and culture scene, we saw that with the Panorama this summer. I mean, what we can do to help lift and bring people into the city and bring businesses into the city, have people come and visit and spend money in the city. I mean, I'm excited for the work ahead, and I've been able to see what we've been able to accomplish this summer.
So this is not the beginning. I mean, we've been talking about ourselves as a cultural center with cultural activity before this summer, but clearly something happened this summer. Panorama was part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's been more organization, been more meetings. People are talking about New Bedford as a place for culture.
Right.
When there's Italian, there's a number of places where this all happens. Sometimes it happens right in the waterfront.
It does, yeah.
So it's there's something happening. There's no question about it. Where does the Whaling Museum fit in all of that?
It's a great question. I mean, what's been clear to me is we are such a cornerstone and anchor of the downtown community and the greater region, really New Bedford and all the surrounding areas. I mean, we are the keepers of the history of Old Dartmouth, too, and that really extends to a broad region. I think the role that we would want to continue to play is to be innovators in terms of what we can do for blending that arts and culture piece together. But there's such huge room for us in terms of education and partnering. I had a great meeting yesterday with the superintendent. I mean, partnering with the city, the schools, and other really like-minded nonprofits. You mentioned the Zeitarian. They do beautiful and highly engaging work. I mean, I'm loving working with a whole crew on Lyceum and some of the different conversations and dialogue across the city. There's such a genuine spirit of collaboration in this city, and it's fun to be a part of.
Well, and of course, students have been visiting the Whaling Museum for many years. I hope Tom Anderson will continue that.
I think he will.
Is there another role the Whaling Museum can play?
There's many roles we can keep playing. I mean, part of
in education, I'm talking.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, what I love that's already in existence with the New Bedford Public Schools is our participation through whale ecology and the scientific exploration of our relationship with whales in the ocean through a curriculum that we've developed and is in place at all the fourth grade schools across the city of New Bedford. And Superintendent Anderson was very committed to keeping that going, and we are so lucky that we just got a huge federal grant of $143,000 to continue that educational outreach and build that curriculum into sixth grade as well. So there's real opportunity for us to play a key role as being a partner in education across the city.
You're listening to Townsquare Sunday. I'm Jim Phillips. My guest is Amanda McMullen, the new president and CEO of the New Bedford Whaling Museum. What surprised you most about this museum? Any surprises when you walked in?
So I knew the museum. I had come with my children, who are now 14 and 10, for many, many years. So I have always known and loved the collection, the displays, the ability to do storytelling. The educational outreach has surprised me in terms of the impact beyond our walls and what we can, what I was sort of sharing a little bit about what our work is with the New Bedford public school system. But beyond that, our ability to really, the way museums can engage children is we're in a unique role. We are competing with technology, and we've got to figure out how to be innovative, highly interactive and engaging. But we serve a really, really important and vital role for families and for schools in being partners with education.
I was going to wait till this to be the last question, but I have to ask it because you've kind of mentioned the internet. Society is really fast-paced. We all know that. The internet puts the world at your fingertips, any subject at your fingertips, really. So what's the future of museums 20 years from now?
Right. Well, it's funny.
10 years from now.
I know, a year from now, Jim, right? It's interesting. Panorama, we've talked about, was such a beautiful display in Kilbourne Mill and in being in a historic site. One of the things we were really fortunate is we had an individual who donated a virtual reality. So they literally flew a drone through the mill space. So we now have this incredible link where you can interact with the panorama, not only seeing the artifact itself, but seeing it displayed in the mill and how gorgeous it is. And I think we have to be thinking progressively around more things like that. Looking at augmented reality, being able to, I mean, I walk through the museum and I see people on their phones, and that's how they're sort of experiencing the museum. They look up from their phone, they take a look, they take it in, and they look back at their phone. And we have to figure out how we find that right balance of incorporating technology, but not going so far that we lose what's special about a museum experience.
So you're probably still meeting people in New Bedford right now involved in the cultural community and outside as well. So how has that been? How are people...
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I don't even mean to cut you off right before the answer, but it is extraordinary. It is. I feel like it is. It's a city with all the sophistication of a city and everything about it, but it feels like a big town. I feel like I have been so incredibly welcomed here in a genuine way. And it's not just because that I'm a nice person. It's really the role that the museum plays. People feel very much connected to it, but there's such a genuine acceptance and welcoming in terms of my position and the work that the museum is doing.
Well, changing anything at the Whaling Museum is probably a group decision since it's been around a while. But this change, but is change really part of your mission? Do you see change as something that you're looking to do? You've been 5 months in there, but what do you think?
So we're going to be going through a strategic planning process. Our strategic plan right now runs to 2019, so it's the right time to do it. I think we are looking strategically at what more we can be doing around education, but we really lean in heavily on our strength around exhibits and storytelling and that visual way to engage people on our own history. I say to people all the time, part of the richness of the museum's collection is the blessings of prosperity of this city of New Bedford. I mean, we went through two huge waves of economic boom between whaling and the textiles. And as a result, the museum has some of the most spectacular collections. Next summer, you're going to see a premier collection of Dutch and Flemish paintings that will be on display. We have masterpieces that other museums are envious of. And so being able to really look strategically at our exhibition ability to put out really big-scale blockbusters is something that's pretty exciting.
Look, there's another issue, too, that revolves around not only your museum, but other museums in New Bedford, and that is how do we get people who might not appreciate museums as much as I might or you might to come in, look around, and appreciate what this wonderful building has inside it, and the history that it can share. And I'm talking about in lower income communities, minority communities. We need to reach out to those folks, and you're doing it through school. That's a wonderful thing. But do museums have a responsibility to do that?
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons we were so focused on the Panorama being free and open to the public and within the community. And particularly, we found the great spot in the South End. We did not want admission to the Panorama to be a barrier for families to come in and enjoy it. And people have been unbelievably generous with their donations. I can't even tell you. I mean, there's a donation box there, and it's been amazing to watch the response. But it was a commitment that we really made early on that this needs to be accessible. We also benefit from great support where we can put on a free Fun Friday every summer where it's free and we get over 2,000 people in the museum. Other opportunities like AHA Night. There's really great ways to be able to bring people into the museum, and I have to credit our volunteers and our docents who lead so many families and school groups around, and they really spread that excitement of being in a museum, but also teaching how to be in a museum and how to learn through a museum and that experience.
AHA Night free admission? Wow.
Yep.
All right.
Once a month.
That's right. Second Tuesday.
That's right.
Second Tuesday?
Thursday.
Second Thursday.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The heel will be all over.
She will.
So for people who want to learn more about the Whaling Museum, where can they go?
Our website, whalingmuseum.org, is going to be your best spot for it. But don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call our front desk. Many of them are our graduate apprentices. They are the best ambassadors for the museum and our work, and so there's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned phone call too.
And we can't have a segment on the Whaling Museum without talking about the student interns who come in.
That's right. Yeah, the apprentices.
The
They're
apprentices.
incredible.
Yeah.
And we picked up 2 national awards in the past year for this program. It's really, it's a dynamic and engaging program that works with kids throughout the city of New Bedford at the different high schools, including VocaTech. And we have 6 new apprentices this year. They will be with us for 3 years. They're 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, but then we're with them throughout their college experience as well. And so it is sort of a decade-long commitment to kids in the community.
I want you to promise me that when you start some of these new things, when you engage in some new effort, to give us a call. We'll be happy to share it with the public.
You have my word.
All right, very good. My thanks to Amanda McMullen, who is president and CEO of the New Bedford Whaling Museum. Congratulations on the new job. It may not feel quite as new now.
It still feels new,
good.
Shiny and new.
Congratulations and good luck. And
Thank you.
it's a wonderful place, and hopefully even more people will enjoy it in the future.
I agree. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, don't go away. Townsquare Sunday returns in one moment.